Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a public health mystery that absolutely changed medicine forever. We're talking about a deadly fever, a whole string of wealthy victims, and a single elusive culprit who was hiding in plain sight. Now this isn't some riddle. This is the real story of a woman named Mary Mallon. She was a cook who unknowingly spread a lethal disease from kitchen to kitchen, all without ever feeling sick herself. Not one single symptom. So picture this. Between 1900 and 1907, Mary moves from one rich family to the next, and everywhere she goes, she leaves a trail of typhoid fever. She'd work for a family, they'd get sick, and then, poof, she was gone. It was baffling doctors, right? How could a perfectly healthy person possibly be the source of all this disease? So what was really going on here? Well, the answer lies in this pretty groundbreaking medical concept that Mary's case basically forced into the spotlight. Mary was what we now call an asymptomatic carrier. You know, she was a healthy, living host for really dangerous bacteria, and she had absolutely no idea that she was a threat to everyone around her. Okay, so how does this even happen? Well, it starts with an initial infection, and that infection could have been super mild, maybe even unnoticed. After the person gets better, the bacteria can actually retreat and hide out in the body for years, sometimes a whole lifetime. Its favorite hiding spot, the gallbladder. And from there, the person just silently spreads the germs without a clue. The bad guy in this story is a bacterium called Salmonella typhi. It's tough, and it's mobile, but what makes it so sneaky is this one specific part called the Vi antigen. You can think of it like the bacterium's own personal invisibility cloak. Its presence is linked to how dangerous the bug is, and finding that antigen in someone long after they've recovered is the key clue that tells us they've become a chronic carrier. So while carriers like Mary show zero signs of being sick, an active typhoid infection, that's a completely different story. It has some very distinct and often really severe symptoms that doctors are trained to look for. For the people who actually get sick, the disease has some pretty unique calling cards. Doctors, back in Mary's day, had to be like detectives, looking for these clues. A step-ladder fever, where the temperature just creeps a little higher each day. And then this signature rose spots rash that pops up on the torso. And what's really interesting is that the disease can look different depending on your age. In adults, it often starts kind of slow, sometimes even with constipation. But in kids, watch out. The onset can be really sudden, and it's much more likely to involve diarrhea right from the get-go. This all brings us to the big question. How does it spread? The way it gets from person to person is actually pretty simple, but it's brutally effective. It's all about microscopic amounts of contaminated feces being ingested, usually through contaminated food, water, or just unwashed hands. And this quote from the investigator George Soper just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly explains why Mary's job made her so dangerous. I mean, as a cook, she was in the absolute perfect position to unknowingly contaminate food and spread the bacteria to dozens of people she was serving. Mary's story? Well, it didn't end well for her. She was put into forced quarantine for more than 2 decades. But thankfully, today our approach to controlling typhoid is a world away from that. It's much different and way more effective.
But let's be clear, the fight is not over, not by a long shot. Even with everything we know today, there are still an estimated 9 million cases of typhoid around the globe every single year.
And this chart right here really shows the incredible, staggering impact of modern medicine. You can see that back in Mary's time, without antibiotics, up to 20% of cases were fatal. That's as high as 1 in 5 people. But today, with the right treatment, that fatality rate plummets to just 1 to 4%. It's just an amazing testament to how far we've come.
So, with all the modern medical tools we have in our arsenal, what's the single best way to prevent this disease from spreading in the first place?
Now, you might think the answer is a vaccine, right? And don't get me wrong, vaccines are a super important tool, especially if you're traveling. But public health experts are really clear about the #1 priority. And here it is. The answer is actually pretty low tech. The most critical factor in stopping typhoid has always been, and still is, public sanitation. We're talking about the basics: clean water, safe food handling, and good old-fashioned hygiene. Those are the main barriers that stop the bacteria from ever reaching a new person. Which brings us full circle, right back to Mary. If she were alive today, we'd have antibiotics that could actually treat her and clear the infection. We even have surgical options, like removing the gallbladder where the bacteria loves to hide. And most importantly, we have a universal understanding of germ theory that Mary herself just could never accept. It really makes you stop and wonder, doesn't it? How different her life and the lives of all those she infected might have been.